Hey guys, it's Ali here. In this video, I want to just give you an electrical engineer's approach on success and why I think you can actually know if you're going to succeed or not in life and anything that you pursue simply based on signals and systems concept, which is monitoring your inputs and predicting what the outputs are going to be based on the system, which is you. And I think most people don't know the answers to the question, am I going to succeed? Am I not going to succeed? And this is where a lot of people have doubts because you don't know. We cannot predict the future. And frankly, there's no way you can know for sure, right? Like you might think you're going to succeed, but you fail, or you might think you're going to fail, but then you're going to succeed. And this used to be very confusing to me until I learned a very important concept from signal systems, which is that quality of inputs determine quality of outputs. And this alone was worth my electrical engineering degree. Literally just that lesson from that single class in signals and systems, because it made like success or like doing well in life, however you define that, but let's say it's in terms of like career goals or like just doing something substantial with your life, it made that more of a formula and less of like a mystical thing. Because if you have the right inputs and you have the right information that goes inside your brain, and you know that, and you take the right action with that information, you significantly increase the odds of having the outputs that you desire. And I'll give you an example. In 2019, I did an internship at the NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory. And during that internship, I changed. Something about me changed. And it was not because of the project I worked on. It was not because of any technical knowledge that I learned. It was something far more profound in that when I was at NASA, I asked more than 30 people, I think, for career advice. Or I talked to a lot of people, right? I would email a lot of people, a lot of engineers at NASA, and I would say, hey, my name is Ali, I'm an intern, this is my current situation in life. Like I would really appreciate it if you can spend like 10 minutes, just tell me what you would do if you were me, any advice. And through interacting and talking with these NASA engineers, the inputs that were going inside my brain determined the outputs, which is like clearer decisions, more confidence, knowing what I want to do. And then later, I realized a year later that you don't need like NASA engineers to develop these quality inputs. There's books and there's biographies. There's countless brilliant people throughout history who have documented their thoughts, or someone else has documented their thoughts. And you could read a biography about whoever you find to be a person of like inspirational inputs. For example, you could read a biography about Leonardo da Vinci if you're somebody who's really into the arts and sciences. Or you can read, for example, Elon Musk's autobiography if you want to start a company and you want to go hardcore. Or you can read about Jeff Bezos if you want to build a company that in a bit more sustainable, less crazy way, even though Amazon was also crazy. You can learn about Richard Feynman, and I've read 3 Richard Feynman books. If you really want to develop a passion for physics and engineering, you can read about anybody who you find to be inspirational and basically listen to their advice, and they will become the inputs that go inside your brain. Now, in the past 12 months, I've read Elon Musk's biography, I've read Ben Franklin's biography, I've read Albert Einstein's biography, I've read Phil Knight, the founder of Nike, Shoe Dog. I've read Invent and Wander, which is Jeff Bezos' letters to shareholders. I've read a lot of Richard Feynman's books and lectures, and I've just read countless biographies and studied the lives of people whom I want to resemble, at least in some area. For example, if I were to ever start a business or start a company, I would want it to be as successful as SpaceX or Amazon. Hence, I would get inputs from Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos on what actions they took for their companies. If I ever want to teach physics or make strong progress in physics, which I plan on doing for the rest of my life, whether I do it as a hobby or as a job or whatever, I will read Richard Feynman and I will read a lot of his ideas and see what for example, one thing he often gives advice about is he says, study what interests you in the least conventional way possible. Just like follow your heart, just go balls to the wall with a thing that you find absolutely interesting. And same thing with Steve Jobs. I've read Steve Jobs' biography, and that's because Steve Jobs was somebody who was obsessing over the interface between technology and liberal arts, between the science and the art, the engineering and the art. And that's something I do as well. For example, like you notice on my channel, I make engineering content, I make technical content, but a lot of it I try to bring a more artistic, humane, passionate element to it. I try to make it at the interface of the heart and the mind, of the technology and the liberal arts. And these are the inputs I am putting inside my brain. And I think this is something like is really quite that simple. If you want to predict whether somebody will succeed or not, or to phrase it more accurately, if you want to predict whether somebody has a high likelihood of success or high likelihood of failure, you don't need to do anything fancy. You just need to monitor the inputs that are going inside the brain. Assuming obviously that the person is taking action with these inputs. Like if you just study the biography of all the people who have built great companies or have been great engineers or have been great at what they do, but you don't really do anything substantial with it, well, there's no point. However, just reading it is still better than not reading it because it's still inputs that are going towards your brain, and that alone will make all the difference. So if you were to be honest with yourself for a second and do like an audit, like an input audit on your life, and just ask yourself, what type of inputs am I putting in my brain? What YouTube channels am I watching? What TikTok videos am I consuming? What Instagram reels am I consuming? What people am I talking to? What books am I reading? Am I even reading books? These inputs, whatever you're putting inside your brain, they're forming your knowledge, they're forming your beliefs, they're forming everything that you think you know about yourself and about the world. They are forming everything that you believe is true and you don't believe is true. And they are literally becoming the axioms for which you define life and live life. And this will become you. This is becoming your destiny. Now, obviously, there are external circumstances that we may not be able to control. But I'm an engineer. I'm a practical guy. I'd much rather focus on the things that I can control than the things that I cannot control. If something out of my control happens, that's okay. I'll accept it for what it is and I will adapt when the time comes. But for now, all I can focus on is the inputs that will determine a big portion of the outputs that are going into my brain. Now, in an ideal computer system, for example, or in a non-organic, like in a machine, the inputs determine the outputs 100%. However, because we are humans, there's chance, there's luck, there's spirituality, there's other elements that we may not fully understand that may come into play. That number is 100%, but it's still pretty high. I would still put it like 80, 85%, 90%. And if you even if that's not true, if you adopt the belief that that is true and you act in accordance with that belief, and you start monitoring and changing the inputs you put inside your brain in accordance with the belief that the inputs that you have going into the system, which is your brain, will determine the outputs coming out, and that will determine your results and actions, and whether you succeed or not, and whatever you're pursuing or not. That alone is the best model you can follow when it comes to learning something, turning that knowledge to action, and seeing the action come to fruition. And this is what I plan on doing over the next few years. This is what I've been doing for a few years. And I really am curious to see the results. I mean, one thing we can find out with time is if I keep posting, like I'm curious what the performance of this channel would be. If I, let's say I start a company, I'm curious whether that company will succeed or not. If I get a job as an engineer when I graduate, I'm curious how my performance will be in that job. But my prediction with that, it would probably be good or at least better than average because the inputs I am feeding inside my brain are good or better than average. And I think the simplicity of that alone is what makes it so beautiful. But anyway, quick little sharing my thoughts with you guys. Let me know what you think of that. If you really resonate with that, let me know in the comments below. I would love to talk to you. And with that, I'll see you in the next video. Peace, love.